I want to introduce our panel today, and I'm gonna basically hand it off to each panelist to tell us a little bit about their current role, how they got into that role, their career journey, and a little bit about the, what they do on a day-to-day basis to describe their roles and their day-to-day activities within those roles. So I'll start off with Mel, who's currently Director of Process Sciences at Alnylam. Mel, thank you so much for being here. Tell us a little bit about what you do and how you got there.
Well, thanks so much for the opportunity to talk about the industry and about Alnylam a little bit. I did join Alnylam about a year and a half ago. My background is in chemical engineering, and I started in pharma back in the late 1980s, actually, when I was in college. And I've worked in multiple different roles in small companies and much larger companies in the industry. I've worked in device development, blood substitutes, vaccine development, antibiotics, specialty chemicals, and most recently now at Alnylam, I'm working on RNAi therapeutics. So for me, day to day, it varies a lot. We're starting up a new plant here in Norton, Massachusetts, and I'm building a manufacturing team. I'm in a pretty unique role. I'm part of the process development group, heading up a manufacturing team to do clinical manufacturing. And so we're adding to the team. We're building skills with the new equipment that we're bringing online, doing a lot of startup work, and working with our colleagues in Cambridge who are developing new products to come into clinical trials. And we're gearing up to do tech transfer work into the Norton plant here. So my day-to-day just depends on what's going on during the day. I spend a lot of time out on the plant floor. I also spend a lot of time planning for the clinical trial support that we're going to be doing in the future. So it varies a lot. It's a very exciting place to be right now.
Mel, thank you for that. But how did you get into these roles as well? How did you choose? Why did you choose to start your career in
Well,
sector?
when I started in chemical engineering, a lot of my colleagues, my fellow students, were going in a more traditional route to petrochemicals or to big chemical companies. And I really wanted to try something different. And so I took a co-op position for Pfizer Pharmaceuticals back then. And I kind of caught the bug and wanted to stay in pharmaceuticals or biotech. And when I graduated, I moved from Ohio to Boston to get into this industry. I came with no job and worked my way into the industry.
Great. So curiosity caught the better of you. You tried out. You started off an internship, and then you kind of just found your space.
Yeah.
Cool. Yolanda, listen, see whether we can unmute her. Maybe in the meantime, I'll skip to Dan, and then we'll come back to you, Yolanda, once you figure out.
Sure.
Okay.
Thanks, Danica.
No worries.
And thanks everyone for your time this evening. I appreciate you all coming to our event. My name is Dan Michetti. I am the manager of the manufacturing engineering team at Bristol Myers Squibb in the Devens facility in Massachusetts. I've been with Bristol Myers Squibb at the Devens facility for a little over 6 years now. In terms of starting my career, I also came from a chemical engineering traditionally trained background, and very similar to Mel, I didn't necessarily want to take the traditional route and go to petrochem or go into the fuels. So really the best option around here was biotech. So I started looking into what that would mean for me, where I could work, how to build my network and try and find a way into one of those companies and start gaining experience, and got in through a co-op also at Bristol Myers Squibb at the Devens facility. It was a very different time back then. We were bringing the facility online, again, very similar to Mel and her experience currently. I was part of a commissioning qualification validation team, and we were really technical experts in terms of clean in place and steam in place circuit design, validation of that, of those circuits, and making sure that our equipment was ready to rock and roll for day-to-day manufacturing. And then over the years, I've held various roles in sort of process engineering or manufacturing engineering type teams, working my way up to leading a team like that currently. My day-to-day is one of the favorite parts of my job. It's variable. I never really know what I'm going to come into each morning. It really ebbs and flows with the manufacturing process and what kind of things we're working through on a day-to-day basis, what kind of issues arise, and spending a lot of time working with our cross-functional support teams to make sure that manufacturing has what they need to keep working, keep manufacturing product, and getting the medicines out to our patients. So that's a little bit about my day-to-day.
Thank you, Dan. I'm curious, you mentioned your day-to-day is very variable. What skills did you come in with, do you think, that best prepared you for handling the variability?
Sure. The ability to think critically about various different types of problems, whether they're technical or whether they're people-based, or even something as simple as just trying to figure out how to log on to a Zoom call 5 minutes before you're going to do a call with everybody on the line.
Right.
Just the ability to think critically has been my greatest skill, and really something that I took away from my education. I did an undergrad Bachelor of Science in Chemical Engineering, and that really gets you in the mode of thinking critically about really tough problems and figuring out solutions and working with teams to make sure that you're finding the right solution and taking it from there.
And like Mel, did you have opportunities to do any internships that kind of helped you walk you to that first permanent position?
Yes, I mentioned that I didn't really know kind of where I wanted to go. I figured biotech was in the area and it was a good spot to try. My co-op really cemented my belief in the industry and my desire to work in the industry long term. So I held two other internships in the industry, one in a similar CQV type role, and then another in a biofuels manufacturing development role, which was really interesting, totally different than what I do now and what I've done before. But again, those experiences were really foundational in building my desire to have my career in this industry.
Understood. Right. So it seems like there is a recurring theme of, curiosity and the exploration to try a couple of different types of roles within an internship, and really explore the things that you might like and find out whether you like them or not, and then pursue things from there.
Absolutely.
Great. Elizabeth, are we set with Yolanda?
Yes, we are.
Okay, great.
I hope so. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you well.
To say that was a great segue about the problem shooting, like right before the Zoom call, for sure. So thanks everybody for joining us tonight. My name is Yolanda McLean. I'm the Director of Quality Control here at Alnylam. I'm actually sitting socially distant with a wall separating us from Mel. So the way that I got to my current path, I actually started off thinking I wanted to do fisheries work. And so my degree was is in ocean studies with a minor in small vessel operations. And it was a very random and yet meaningful conversation at a neighbor's backyard barbecue that led me to start working at Biogen right after college. And so they really wanted somebody who was like fresh out of school, green, and who could kind of learn whatever they threw at you. And so I started off in analytical development and analytical sciences. And then eventually, when the group split, I moved into QC, and so I've been in QC ever since. And we don't need to talk about how many years that has been. So I've also gone through different iterations of what QC is. I started off at the bench at Biogen, like I mentioned, and then moved on to a management team. Moved to another company doing antibody drug conjugate work, and so got to see a little bit of both the small and large molecule through that. From there, I took some time to learn medical device. So
went to a combination product company that was pretty large, actually the second largest combination device manufacturer in the country. And then decided that it just wasn't my thing, so went back to proteins for a bit before joining Alnylam, where we're doing interfering RNA work. So a little bit of everything there, but have always had a passion for looking at data and generating data and helping to tell the story that data wants to tell, and being able to interpret it for others. So yeah, so that's been a little bit of my journey from start to finish, at least, well, the finish right now as it is. My day-to-day, similar to Mel's, varies a bit. I come in with the best intentions of a to-do list, and usually that to-do list includes things like reviewing data, helping to release raw materials to go into the manufacturing process, you know, basically supporting our manufacturing and process sciences colleagues. And more times than not, that does happen, but kind of mixed into there's also things like reviewing technical reports, writing and responding to questions from regulatory agencies, so whether it's the FDA or EMA or some other region, to doing things like justifying specifications, working on stability and expiration dates, and supporting the facility through looking at our contamination control processes. So whether it's testing raw materials, or doing environmental monitoring, or looking at gowning qualifications, things like that. So it's a little bit of a day-to-day mishmash.
Thanks, Yolanda. If I double click a little bit into the question, what is quality control? As in, so at the bench, what would a scientist expect to be doing for all things that fall under quality control? Is it assay development? Is it, you know?
Yeah, it's a great question. Basically, QC in a nutshell is the practice of ensuring that we've got consistent quality throughout the manufacturing process and a uniformity of product. We're working under standard operating procedures that are, you know, developed with good manufacturing practice in mind, and those in good manufacturing practices are the set of regulations that are set forth by the FDA or by EMA, so the European Medicines Agency or whomever. At the bench, there are a panel of tests and assays that the analysts will run that are based off of assessment of safety, identity, strength, purity, and quality. So we're running some chromatography assays, we're running some content assays, we're doing some bioassays, not specifically here at Alnylam, the bioassays, but we're doing some in vitro assays. So it really depends on the type of product and the type of molecule that you're trying to give evidence for. And then we are passing that along to our manufacturing colleagues, to our process sciences colleagues, to our stability colleagues, anybody who needs this information, again, to kind of help tell that story that the process has gone the way that we predicted it to, and that the product that's coming out is really what we've intended it to be.
Okay, understood. Great. Thank you, Yolanda. I'll move to Chris Parrish from Vericel.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm the Vice President of Manufacturing for Vericel, and I oversee production of our 2 FDA-approved autologous cell therapies. As far as my journey, I didn't know what I wanted to do when I was in high school. I thought maybe medicine, pharmacy, so I looked at 2 schools, a small school versus a big state school. Small school is cheaper, I went there. So I went to Ferris State. I was looking at pharmacy, didn't think it was going to be for me, and I heard about this program called biotechnology. This is how old I am. Back in 1990, 1991, there were 3 universities in the entire United States that offered biotechnology. Sounded fascinating. I went to biotech. Approaching graduation, I figured, well, I better get a PhD. This is a very research-oriented degree. I was actually recruited by a big pharma before I graduated. So I went into an internship program. In the internship, I realized industry is where I belong, and I never looked back to going to academia. I didn't like being in school. I liked being in an environment where it was applied learning and you use that learning. So when I hit the industry environment, I really enjoyed it. And it really called to me. Once I was in industry, I started in big pharma. Then I went into a small biotech, and I established a background in flow cytometry, cell sorting, cell analysis, led a quality control department for a while, and then went into manufacturing and production. And the thing I say to folks is it's really critical as you grow your career to get these foundational skills, get your knowledge base built up, and that will elevate you to the next level. And then for my day-to-day operation, so I oversee the entire manufacturing operation, I can be looking at things such as how we're going to handle a certain cell production program for a lot. Because for our cell therapies, an autologous cell therapy basically means we take cells from you and build a custom cell product and give it back to you. A single lot is a custom lot for each individual. So I'll spend a lot of time looking at the individual lots as far as growth progress, looking at supply chain, looking into customer care, making sure we take care of all the sales reps in the field questions from physicians about our product, about therapies, about what we can deliver. And then of course, coming back to materials. When I graduated from college, I thought it was all about the science, cell-to-cell interaction, message expression, gene expression, etc. And as I've learned in the 27 years in this field, no, it's supply chain, it's materials. Those are the things that will bring you to your knees if you do not have the long ability to look out in front of it. This year's been COVID. Things as simple as a laboratory centrifuge tube, making sure you have ample supply of centrifuge tubes in case they are all pulled for COVID testing. These little things you don't think about that are the reality of being in biomanufacturing. And I would say additionally, when it could be kind of lightheartedly, biomanufacturing, biotechnology is not for the faint of heart. You need some intestinal fortitude for this field because there's a lot of challenges. And I think as Dan was saying earlier, a skill that will behoove you is the ability to be critical, to be fast on your feet, and to be comfortable taking your experiences to make a quick decision. That's a compliant decision moving forward. This is a very fast-paced industry and it's constantly evolving. Even things such as the regulatory aspect of it is a constant challenge for all of us. And I would say kind of in closing here, one of my biggest regrets I had coming out of college is I had no idea just how vast biomanufacturing really is. I thought, I get my degree, I'm going to be in research, maybe working at a bench, and that's where it's all going to kind of play out. But what am I going to do with a biotech degree? But the reality is this field is so vast. Everything from quality control, quality assurance, biomanufacturing, regulatory, quality control raw materials, et cetera, customer care, supply chain. It really is what you want to do with your career. And I would say to make sure you identify what calls to you. If you're not a blue sky mind like I'm not, operations is fantastic. I would be terrible in a research environment. And it's identifying what you enjoy, what calls to you, and that I think can help provide success for your future.
Thank you, Chris. I have a quick question. So I see similarities. I see kind of recurring themes here of being, fast-paced, being quick to critical thinking, quick on your feet. Do you think these are more personality attributes, or do you think that you receive training sometime throughout your education or slightly after your education that sets you up for being successful in a role like this?
I think it's a little both. Obviously, we all have our personal abilities and personal skills, how fast we can process information. But I think secondly, another piece of advice I'd give, my humble opinion, is having time at the various levels in your career development is really important. I've had people fresh to the industry say to me, I want to be a manager. And I look at them like, you have no experience. It's about getting those years under your belt, getting that technical ability, gaining that knowledge, dealing with the day-to-day in and out and learning from mentors, people that have been there, have done that, being a sponge and taking all the information in, that will give you that repertoire of knowledge when you have to make these fast decisions, and you can feel good and feel confident about it and grow in your career.
I think that's a good point. So being patient and kind of accumulating those skills and accumulating that knowledge and expertise, and then working your way up to that managerial position or towards like growth. Understood. Okay. Thank you, Chris. We'll definitely we have plenty of questions that kind of touch on all the things you all have been talking about, but I'll save that for the Q&A, and we'll go to our last panelist, Sean from Wuxi Biologics. He's Director of Manufacturing. Welcome, Sean.
Thanks, Danica. I'm not sure how I'm going to follow the crew that just went ahead of me, but talk a little bit about myself. My name's Sean Fitzpatrick. My current role is Director of Manufacturing for Wuxi Biologics. My role encompasses the new facility that we're going to be constructing. We're in the process of, we just broke ground on about a month ago in Worcester, Massachusetts. Also have some responsibilities for, we just also acquired a facility in Cranberry, New Jersey. So working to kind of bring that facility online that's already existing while we're kind of getting this facility online, or building it. From a day-to-day operations, as most of my peers on the call here, it's a lot of curveballs. Being a little bit about Wuxi Biologics, it's a global contract development manufacturing organization. So what we do, we don't necessarily have any homegrown products. We basically partner with clients of ours, like some of my peers on the phone, to manufacture on behalf of their product they've developed, or if they've brought it to a certain point, or if they need expanded capacity. That's where we could come in. And I think where Wuxi Biologics has a global footprint in Ireland, China, Germany, as well as they're beginning their realm here on basically the East Coast in the U.S. So it's been exciting time. I've been here only a year. Spent a little prior to this. I spent about 20 years. What was TKT, that was acquired by Shire, that was acquired by Takeda. Most of my roles across my career within biotech. Let me start with my career journey a little bit, and then I can lead into that. So I grew up in Boston, not the best of neighborhoods. Went through metal detectors in high school, and basically your career could have gone a few different ways growing up where I grew up. At one point, trying to figure out what I wanted to do in high school. So I was working at a nursing home in the kitchen. I thought I wanted to be a baker. So I was working there while being the assistant baker while I was going to culinary arts. Realized the hours for baking was even more insane than biotech. So I think from there I went to a number of, you name the class. I started taking classes at various schools, just trying to test the waters, see what I wanted to do. I landed in a program that was basically it was a tuition-free program. I didn't have much money or tuition or anything. So I worked full-time at nights while I was going to this 9-month program. It's called the Just Start program. It's a 9-month full-time program with just core sciences. That kind of broke me into this field. This is the mid-90s. So always loved science, always had an affinity for it, and then kind of got into it. And then as my first job coming out of there in 97, I think we were fighting for the fax machine, faxing our resumes over to when there were actual paper newspapers, and trying to get your resumes in to find a job. I started at a small company called Serrano Labs. It was smaller back then. Primarily all manufacturing roles in my career. From Serrano, I went to a small company called Genetics Institute. Small stint in research, but it was more of a manufacturing role in research. Then moved in my roles at what was the TKT Shire roles. All primarily helped start up the 3 manufacturing facilities that they have in Massachusetts. Various roles, everything in manufacturing that you could dream of, project management roles. It was just kind of the willingness to one thing that I've always done is if they needed somebody from the bench, you could call it, what do you need me? I can go fill that role. If somebody left the company, I can go fill that for a little while. So that helped me. Kudos to that company. I loved my 20 years there. And it was a really tough decision making a move. You're someplace for 20 years and then making a leap to a new company, way new culture. But haven't looked back since. And so it's been an exciting time.
Great. So at Wuxi, you must cover quite a variety of different drug classes that you help your clients with in terms of manufacturing. And yeah, how challenging is that, or how are there strong similarities between, is there a strong theme of manufacturing, a strong skill set that relates specifically to manufacturing?
A lot of the focus of the facilities that we're building right now are primarily biologics, drug substance manufacturing. There are definitely varying things that feed into that. I'm still learning a little bit about some of the businesses that we've kind of got throughout the world and some of those technologies as well. So I think we're trying to build those capabilities to be more than just your typical kind of traditional biologics sense of things. So that's exposure at the moment, but that's, obviously I think things can morph. We're trying to build all of our facilities so they're flexible, so you can basically wheel in one process, if you do a changeover, wheel in the next process or technologies to kind of support those.
Okay, understood. Thank you. Yeah, I think we have a lot of exciting questions to kind of bring up, and what I'll do is I'll start with a few and maybe direct them to particular panelists. But then again, if anybody has anything interesting to say in terms of the panelists, please feel free to jump in and you know, participate in the discussion. So it sounds like most of you have you know, had curiosities, like I said, and then went out to find internships to find out what some of those roles might be like, and that's how you put your first foot forward and got into your current career path. What advice do you have for people who are just entering, you know, just graduating from their bachelor's degree or their graduate degree, and might be curious about a role in biomanufacturing? How did you select those first internships? Maybe I'll start with Chris.
So to get started in biomanufacturing,
Yeah.
one thing you could do is, of course, looking at company websites, but looking at the various recruiting companies in the area, like your Aerotech, your other contract providers. They can hook you up with various companies in the various areas for either short-term, long-term consultant opportunities, and some are basically contract to perm positions. And the benefit of doing something like this is you get to basically test drive the company as well, identify, is this something I'd be interested in? And nothing's binding and nothing's permanent. I recommend to everybody, if in an ideal world, I'd say anyone who wants to be in biomanufacturing should spend at least 6 months, if not a year, in quality control to get a sense of following regulations, SOPs, compliance, understanding the importance of really being spot on with what you do. But we use the contract companies quite a bit for our entry-level manufacturing technicians. They could have a certificate program from just to start, for example, come in through Aerotech. We can bring them on for 3 to 6 months. If they work out, we'll convert them and have them become a full-time manufacturing technician. It's been a very great way for us to identify talent and to bring people into the organization. So, yeah, I think too, any entry-level job is going to be a great job because it's going to expose you to the company, expose you to the environment and the industry, and you will learn, and it's a great stepping stone.
Okay. Yolanda, do you agree that the QC department is a good first start?
I'm very biased, obviously. Thanks, Chris, for that. Yeah, I mean, I do think that QC is a great place to start. You know, first off, from the perspective of what we're doing on a day-to-day basis, whether you're on the bench or removed from the bench, is really interacting and developing strategic relationships with our colleagues. I mean, at the end of the day, QC is a customer service forward department. We're interacting with manufacturing, process sciences, facilities who are responsible, you know, for the HVAC and for the different types of critical utility systems. We're interacting with supply chain, toxicology, research and development, you know, the regulatory affairs department. And so because you get to experience a little bit of each one of those, at the end of the day, it does help you hone in and focus on where your interest lies. And sometimes it means that you want to stay in the lab and that you want to do more and take a path of either managing a lab or doing specifications or doing some of that regulatory work and some of the strategic work. But sometimes it also means that you want to go into facilities and engineering and automation, or that you do want to join manufacturing and process sciences. So it really is a nice way to get a lot of exposure.
Okay. And this question is for both Mel and Yolanda specifically. And this attendee wanted to know what the job market was like for women in the area of manufacturing, particularly in the engineering spaces, but also in the other aspects.
Mel, you want to go first? Yeah.
It's great. It's a great job market. We can't find enough good candidates to bring people in. It's a struggle finding candidates. Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, if you have interest in roles in this industry, you will probably find yourself in a very good position if you just apply and, you know, get some coaching on your interviewing skills and have an open mind about the roles that you can take. I know that you know, way back when people would stay in a role for many, many years, but the world has changed now, and you can take a quick, like Chris said, 6 to 12-month tour through a role and find it as a jumping off point to a different role in the same company or a different role in a different company. But the industry is starved for candidates right now. So I would say it's a great time to be in the market, whether you're a woman or a man, trying to find a role in this industry.
Okay. Yolanda, you kind of, that reflects with you, or do you have a?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with everything that Mel just said. You know, and also, you know, just adding that as we're building and placing more emphasis on diversity and inclusion, I think that what you're seeing is that, you know, there are a lot more women who are willing to put themselves out there for roles where they historically haven't, and companies are really embracing that. You know, so to kind of amplify what Mel was saying in terms of, you know, if you see something out there that you're interested in, you know, kind of try to push down your nerves about applying for it and just go for it, because you just never know. But for sure, we do struggle with finding women candidates a lot of times, actually.
Okay. So in conclusion, if you are interested in this field, go for it. Woman, you know, doesn't matter who you are, but it seems like there's a big demand for people to kind of join the industry.
And
network. And network.
Yeah, just network. Like, yeah, that's such an important part, is, you know, talk to whomever you can, whether it's, you know, Carla at MassBio, whether it's the Scismic team, but for sure, just network.
And are you typically open to people reaching out through LinkedIn, for example, and respectfully writing to you, asking questions, or trying to network with you through those? Is there a way that you recommend for our attendees to kind of network and get themselves out there?
LinkedIn is great for me. I don't want to speak for any of the other panelists. I've had some really great conversations on LinkedIn with people that I've met at different events, whether it's, you know, like We in STEM Summit for Women, or other MassBio events, or even events that Alnylam has held. And so, yeah, I mean, it never hurts to send out a message. Obviously, you know, with a little bit of courtesy, you know, saying, hey, you know, I'm reaching out randomly, but do you have some time to chat a little bit? But yeah, I always think that LinkedIn is a nice way to make that introduction. And a lot of times, if you don't know somebody, or if you don't have their email address, you know, that function of seeing who you have mutually in common is also really helpful, because you can always ask for an introduction.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's for Dan. What are some additional and for Sean, either one of you, both of you, what are some additional certifications or courses that one can take to better equip themselves coming out of their associate degrees or bachelor's degrees?
That's a really good question, Danica. I think that Sean mentioned a biomanufacturing certification. That's a really, really strong educational background to give yourself, and a lot of the times these days they have a great hands-on aspect of the program. Really sets you up for success in that first entry-level role in what I like to think of as foundational type roles, like your QC bench role, like your manufacturing technician role. Those are so important, as you know, as Chris pointed out earlier. Those are so important to building your experience and building a technical skill set which can catapult you to the next step in your career. I think those certification programs are becoming increasingly more valuable to us as hiring managers and us as companies. We look at those and think that they're an awesome way to get some hands-on experience really quickly and set you up for that entry-level role in like a manufacturing or a QC type position.
And do you find that, again, for Sean as well, Dan, but do you find that your companies actually actively form partnerships or outreach programs with the institutions that offer these certifications to to bring in interested candidates?
Yes, I would say that we're actively seeking these types of programs out, and for instance, the MassBioEd has an apprenticeship program which Bristol Myers Squibb is going to heavily leverage over the next couple of years to really create a strong pipeline of talent into our company and provide those types of entry-level roles firsthand to folks who are going through those types of programs. I think it's an important part of every company's hiring strategy.
Completely agree with Dan. I think a lot of what we do is when you go and talk to these local other institutions and schools, you build these relationships now. These are your potential future workforce, making sure they have the correct curriculum that they're delivering, so it actually makes them a little more job ready as they're entering the workforce. Even going back to some of the schools that have some hands-on training out there, WPI has basically a full pilot lab in their area. Quincy College has another certificate program with a lot of like single-use technology built into their programs as well. That's something near and dear to my heart. I'm also working with the Worcester Public Schools. They have the Worcester Technical High School is working on a nightlife program that's relative to a certificate and working on curriculum there to try and help. Other things to do, guest lectures, giving tours. I don't have a functional facility to show anybody, but providing tours for those future workforce. So you're building that skill set from prior to them leaving school. When they actually arrive, they know what they're in for, or at least have a clue.
Yeah. Okay. For sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Dan.
To add on what Sean said, just really quickly, those certification programs are also a really awesome way for you to network with people from companies, because a lot of the times those certification programs will bring people from industry in to teach a course, or teach a day lecture, or teach a hands-on course where you're setting up a bioreactor for a cell culture run. That's a chance for you to network. To Yolanda's point, networking is probably the most useful tool other than your training to help get you into these types of roles.
Right. So seek out those institutions that offer these biomanufacturing certification programs as a means to educate and build up your skill set, hands-on as well as theoretically, theory, as a means to kind of get your first internship or get your foot in the door, and as a means to networking effectively within the industry. Now, we have quite a few PhD individuals within the audience as well today. Now, for the individuals coming in with a graduate degree, a PhD, what are some of the opportunities that may lie within the biomanufacturing industry, and how would they break into that industry from academia? Maybe Chris and Sean, or anyone else who has insight. Welcome. Chris, you want to start?
Yeah, I found with what we do in our biomanufacturing being a true commercial product out the door, we haven't seen a lot of interest from our PhD type candidates. Typically for us, the PhDs have been more into your research and development, your tech transfer, your process improvements, things of that nature. So I have not had a whole lot of experience with PhD entry-level candidates. Most of my exposure has been master's degrees and below. We have had PhDs from different countries come in, but they are really more dedicated to, yes, I want to work in the cell therapy manufacturing environment. So I can't really provide a whole lot of guidance for the PhD students out there.
Okay. Does anyone have experience within the panelist of working or hiring or bringing in PhD?
Relatively limited on my side as well. I think, as Chris says, it's primarily kind of master's degrees. I'll get master chemies in that are just interested to get their foot in the door, but from PhDs, I think I've had one PhD in 25 years of doing this, working for me.
We actually, and so QC has multiple facets, and so we do actually have quite a bit quite a number, of PhDs on our team. Now, the roles that they fulfill are very different. We have, so mostly what I've been talking about to start with has been from an operations standpoint. So you're talking about doing bench work, being at the manufacturing facilities. In our Kendall office, we do have 3 branches of QC. One is a QC technical services. One is a QC stability group. And the other one is an external facing QC group. And what they are doing is again working with regulatory affairs on some of the more technical questions, so sections like elucidations and characterization, and really getting into the deep science of the molecules. Things like setting specifications, and so looking really deeply again into the methods that the analysts are running, and how it is that data is interpreted, and how they all come together in conjunction with some of the process sciences information. We have batch records review and review of external testing data, plus trending. Trending is a huge part, and statistics are a huge part of what we do. And so we do have a lot of PhDs who come in and who are doing that type of analytics. And so we usually, I would say right now, actually on our team, we have, in a group of 23, there's probably about 8 PhDs, and some of them are brand new out of their postdoc. So we do have opportunities in QC for that. And it's the same for analytical development. That's our sister department. So you talked earlier, Danica, about like method development and things like that. So our analytical development group are the ones who are developing methods, who partner with process sciences, you know, when needs are identified for analysis of part of the manufacturing process. And so these are the folks who are doing that type of work through the early stage of a product, and then handing it over in a tech transfer type process to QC to carry it through a regulated space. So.
Okay, makes sense. That's right. And is that the same in process sciences, Mel, or is that, do you find that a different?
Yeah, it's similar. So my part of the process sciences organization is really focused on clinical manufacturing, but I'm part of a larger organization that's based in Cambridge, where we do have a number of PhDs working to develop the process that they transfer to my manufacturing plant. We also have PhDs who work on product characterization, or work on the process characterization to understand through design of experiments what the robustness limitations are for our actual manufacturing process. As we're going through the stages of clinical development and approaching, you know, GMP commercial manufacturing, we invest a lot more resources trying to understand and characterize that process so that we have it well understood and controlled as we're going into commercial manufacturing. So most of the folks in my organization, my larger organization, who are PhDs, work in the PD labs in Cambridge, not in the facility where I am in Norton.
Okay, understood. So there definitely are opportunities for people coming in with PhD degrees, seemingly in QC and process development. Okay, understood.
And Danica, I
ahead.
wanted to add one more type of role. It's I guess it could be classified as a niche type role, but it's sort of in addition to what Yolanda and Mel have talked about. It's once you've moved a molecule into commercial manufacturing and it's in its life cycle in commercial manufacturing, there are times where you do have a need for that type of deeper understanding of what's going on on the manufacturing floor, and in other cases where you have changes that are coming to the manufacturing floor. If it's in a commercial stage, we also have a team that handles that. It's similar to the process development team or the process sciences team, which Mel has detailed, but it's more of a commercial manufacturing facing organization, and has many entry-level PhD opportunities. That's their primary source for incoming talent.
Do you know what some of the role titles might be within this space, just so some of the audience can maybe go check, do a bit more research on that?
Yeah, absolutely. In some cases, they'll be titled as a process engineer, particularly at Bristol Myers Squibb. And then in other cases, they'll be titled as a scientist. And then in some rare cases, they're a combination process engineer / scientist.
Okay, great. I'm going to ask one more question from our questions that came in through your registration. So then I definitely want to make sure I'm opening it up to some of the live questions coming in as well. But maybe this one for Sean first and then Chris after Sean. But what are the overlaps, or how do you communicate? What is the, I guess, interaction between what you do and regulatory sciences, the regulatory department?
So regulatory sciences is a little different than kind of operations. So we're more so on the process sciences, like a Mel's type of role in the clinical phase of feeding into kind of commercial facilities. Sorry, I'm getting stuck on this one.
No, no worries. And if anybody else, you know, yeah, if you, yeah, that's okay. We can come back to you. Does anyone else have any insights into that?
Are you saying just the regulatory interface with biomanufacturing?
Yeah.
Production? Yeah, regulatory is huge. And it's always the question of, if you want to make a process improvement, what is the regulatory implications? Something can seem so innocuous, but if it's a easy filing or annual reportable filing, meaning you can go ahead and make the change with your change control system, great. If you have to notify the FDA first and actually get prior approval, that can be 6 months, plus all the time to actually implement and validate that change. So regulatory is everything in your commercial manufacturing. You want to make sure you are always in a state of control, always compliant with your CGMP regulations, and that everything you're doing is always ensuring the highest quality and the highest level of safety for every product you produce. And that's the whole purpose of the change control concept and regulatory oversight of biomanufacturing. It can be very frustrating for folks because you can see, I can make this little change, solve my problem, we're good to go. But the reality is, from a regulatory standpoint, no. You have to go through all the validation steps, the submissions, the response back from the FDA, the implementation, and then you can go live with the change. And again, it's about safety and quality. So regulatory is significant for our industry.
Saving me, Chris. I got my brain just got stuck on regulatory sciences. But yes, when you're inspected by FDA, EMA, they're often in here if you're getting a pre-approval inspection for something coming down the pike. And even to Chris's point, some minor change, Mel would remember this, could cause a year-long investigation, product on hold, and that can really kind of muck up the works and interrupt product supply if something so small wasn't looked at properly.
Elizabeth, are there any live questions that you would like to?
Yes, you guys have received a lot of questions, so that's good. The audience is very engaged. I know we have only a short time, so we'll try to get through 2 or 3. I know you guys talked about this and addressed this partly in your panel session, but it was asked 5 or 6 times in the question, so I just wanted to ask for more detail. In addition to certifications and internships and networking, how do you, as an entry-level student, graduating from your degree, get into your first job? Most of the jobs say that they require at least 1 or 2 years of experience, and I understand we've talked about certifications and networking as one way to get into a role, but do you have any other advice?
So this is Mel. I guess I would just re-emphasize what Chris said earlier about the agencies that are out there. It is a great opportunity. They usually have entry-level positions available, and it's a great opportunity for an employee to, like you said, test drive the company as well as the company, making sure it's a good fit with the employee. A lot of times, in my experience, those types of roles tend to be a temp to perm type situation where if you sell yourself by doing a great job and adding value at the organization, you're probably going to move into a permanent role relatively easily with the organization where you're contracting. So that would be one thing that I would recommend.
I agree with Mel. I think it's the whole if the role, if you got to kick the door, basically if you can get your foot in the door, no matter what you do, if it's a weird shift or whatever you do, get in there. prove yourself, and whether you get the, you know, a permanent role or not, sometimes they come to fruition, but more often than not, if you're doing a good job, there's potentially a light at the end of the tunnel for you. If not, then you've just added 6 months to your resume. So as your resume lands on, from my desk to Mel's desk, hey, this person worked at, you know, Wuxi Biologics for 6 months, and hey, they built this, you know, they built their toolkit, and that'll jump off at the, you know, the plate to like a Mel or other hiring managers.
Thank you, Mel and Sean. What are the opportunities like for internships after you graduate? So can a PhD student during their PhD, are there internship opportunities for them, or can a post-bac or a post-master's get internships in companies for biomanufacturing roles?
I can't necessarily speak for Wuxi Biologics as a whole, but the global company itself does have what they call an associate training program. And a lot of those folks are PhD master levels that come in. It's basically like a long 6 or 9 month internship. Not as familiar with the process since we're just building the facility now, but it sounds like a fantastic program where somebody comes in, they basically will be assigned to either QC, PD, manufacturing type roles, and then they basically learn a skill. They may rotate to another area after a period of time. So still learning a little bit about what the internal program is, but it's something I'm a big fan of.
Okay.
Thank you. One more question. So there have been a couple folks that are from either an antibody manufacturing background or a food and process development manufacturing background. How plausible is it to move from those types of other industries into biomanufacturing roles?
This is Dan. I think it may have been Yolanda earlier that talked about diversity and inclusion. Coming from a different industry, which is maybe a fringe type industry or something close to biologics manufacturing, that's diversity, bringing a diverse experience to a team. I just recently hired 2 people to my team, neither of which have a which are tremendous engineers and have brought real value to my team and have been excellent hires. I think that if you're not afraid to apply to a role and maybe keep your mind open to what type of role you're applying to, I think you'll have success.
And when you're applying to that role, maybe gear your resume with what are those transferable skills? Let's say I've had a lot of luck. I've hired people when Dell had layoffs a number of years ago. So they're used to working in clean rooms, following procedures, and most of those things translate. It may not be GMPs, but it's those things go hand in hand.
Okay. And I think that's the end of our time. There's so many more questions, but we will table this for another day. Thank you very, very much, Mel, Yolanda, Sean, Dan, and Chris for joining us tonight. Thank you to Carla and Kretzy for helping to organize this. I think, I enjoyed it very much. I hope you guys did too. And thank you for the audience for all the questions you put a lot of effort into being engaged, proactively writing out your questions. And I think to summarize our learnings from today, be proactive, right? Reach out, network, try out internships, try out, be curious, and kind of go out and test those hypotheses about your own career path. Try out internships, get engaged with certification programs. And for those of you coming in with PhDs, there are definitely roles for you within the bioanalytical space, the process development space, the QC space. Again, just trying things out and getting internship programs and giving it a shot. So yeah, be proactive, and both MassBioEd as well as Scismic really put out a lot of different career development events, all free for scientists aimed at helping you through that process. So stay in touch. Thank you very much, and we really appreciate your time, all the panelists.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Good luck,
You
everybody.
too.